I think it's the artist's decision and choice ultimately to write songs about what's important to them. And it was an independent project. And it was me going, I'm documenting the songs that I've written over the past couple of years, and that's it. So you can't come now and try and write something because if you don't actually genuinely believe in that cause.
Welcome to Crossing the Line, a weekly podcast show in which we speak to interesting guests about their stories, but also about the problems facing our country, our continent, and our world. My name is Ryland Fisher and I'm your host. I'd like to thank Mobiland for the technical support to make this podcast possible. My guest today is... It's very difficult to describe you. I don't want to describe you as a jazz singer, a fantastic singer and academic. And I think the viewers will understand a little bit more as the interview goes on why it's difficult to describe you. Nomfundo Xaluva-Dyantyis, welcome to Crossing the Line. I'd like to start off by allowing my guests to just tell me a little bit about themselves. Growing up years and how all of it kind of impacted on the person you became and the career you followed.
It's lovely to be here, and greetings to everyone. I come from Ekabech, Port Elizabeth, and I was raised by my late grandparents, Umuli and Osem, and in fact, my mother was completing her studies when I was born, and so it rendered me in the care of my grandparents. And I grew up calling them Mama and Dada, which is not a foreign concept, right? Especially in Black families. And so my grandfather was a lover of jazz music and was a collector of vinyls. And I remember going on a play date. I must have been in primary school with a friend. And I got to her home and I saw a piano for the first time. And I'd only ever seen one on television. And I was very young and impressionable, but I remember that memory so vividly, and sitting on the piano and playing and touching the keys. And I always say that moment marked the beginning of a relationship with music that I would enjoy for years to come, and really shaped my entire childhood in a way. And then in 1995, I enrolled in a school in Grahamstown, what was then considered or deemed a Model C school. And that's when I started to play classical piano. And I was in boarding school in Grahamstown from when I was in grade 5 then, up until I matriculated. And so my childhood is very much encapsulated in this small town called Makanda, and living in a boarding school, in a boarding house, and all the things that came with it, that retrospectively, now as an adult, I look at this notion of a Model C school and I think, I
also studied in Grahamstown.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. But so, you studied music formally. I know people call you a jazz singer, but when I listen to your music, I hear strains of classical music and classical training coming through quite strongly. Were you classically trained? And how has your training in music, how has it impacted on your sound?
I was classically trained. So you're spot on with that. Not only trained classically in voice, but in piano as well, although piano was the first instrument. And then classically trained vocally from when I was a teenager. And as much as I studied jazz at university, the classical training will always be the foundation of the instrument and its technique. And so that's what you hear coming out in my voice when you listen to it. The repertoire and the style might be jazz, but the actual vocal technique itself and the timbres and the way that I use my voice in different ways is very much in a very classically grounded style. Yeah. And so I hear what you're saying, that like you're a jazz singer, but you hear the, the classical, and it's there. And also, having sung in school choirs as well, and that repertoire of the school choirs and musicals lives very much in my voice as an adult now.
Yeah. I mean, one of my biggest, or the people that I loved to watch perform was Sibongile Khumalo. And when I listen to you, sometimes I kind of get memories of her. I mean, she sang classical music, but when she sang jazz music also, you would kind of get strains of it coming through, you know, even though she was able to almost like sing jazz music without people even knowing that she's a classical singer also.
It's too soon in the interview for me to get emotional when you bring Sibongile up. Like, it's just too soon. It's a beautiful thing. It's a very generous thing for you to say to me. And I mean that in such a real way, because not only was Sibongile Khumalo a mentor and like a mother to me, but she's really someone whose artistry I tried to model in my own. And you're right, that voice. And I studied her albums way before I met her. And you're right, kind of straddling these worlds, right, of being classically trained and yet being so adept in the jazz idiom. But not only that, but providing a vocal texture to compositions that were, you know, meant to be kind of instrumental. You know, I'm thinking about Moses Molelekwa's Mountain Shade, Mankunku's Yakali Nkomo, you know, and so when people say, you know, when they listen to my work or listen to my voice, it reminds them in a way of Sibongile. It's one of the greatest compliments anyone could ever pay. And not only modeling myself against her artist-wise, but also just as the incredible human being that she was. Yeah.
I want to talk a lot more about your music and the musical style, but I wanted to ask you, I mean, you teach at UCT. If you had to choose between performing and teaching,
thank God I don't have to. Thank goodness I don't have to, because part of the job description at UCT is that I maintain a lively and active performance profile. And I think that's really great for a university to look at someone like myself as an artist scholar. And so in order really to kind of keep my job and a good kind of performance review, I need to be performing. And so the environment is very conducive to me. As someone who lectures, I do have the space, and not just the space, but the support to create work. And in fact, my last album was funded mostly by my research fund from the university. So I don't have to choose.
Okay. So I saw you at the Cape Town International Jazz Festival a couple of months ago, and I was just blown away by your performance, but also by the response to your performance. In that normally kind of staid Rosie's venue where people kind of clap, and sometimes at the end of a performance they might give a standing ovation or something like that. People were standing up throughout their performance and singing along and just having a good time. Was that the kind of response that you expected? Is that the kind of response that you normally get?
I mean, one never really knows, right, what to expect from a performance, and it's safer that way because you want to always manage your expectations. But at the Cape Town Jazz Fest, I was returning. I performed there in 2016 or 2017, but on a different stage. And so this time I was very clear I want to play the Rosie stage because some of my favorite musicians have played, and I wanted the theater style or auditorium style setting. And I think because I'm not a new artist in the jazz scene, but also at the festival, and having, you know, put out an album, a third album, 9 years after the second album, I think there was just generally an excitement to see me back on the festival stage. And I think it's just also testament to the fact that when you really create the kind of music that is authentic, that is honest, and people, your community is always there. And I think what happened at the Jazz Festival was really community, the community of people who have always loved my work coming to celebrate me and to celebrate the moment. And I think that's what the audiences experienced there. They thought it was a sense of, yes, we're at a festival, but we can stand and we don't have to observe some kind of a decorum, you know. And I think that's great. But also, in the same way, there was good moments of quiet if the repertoire needed it, but also good moments of people singing and dancing, and a kind of participatory experience. And it was incredible.
Yeah. I get a sense that you don't perform that often, or at least, I don't know, in Cape Town, perhaps not.
You're right, yes.
Why? I mean, I'd like to see you perform more often.
Yeah, I used to so much back then. Of course, I mean, life was different for everybody back then. And when I say back then, I mean, when I was younger, pre-COVID, when there were a lot more live venue spaces around, we were performing all the time. If it was not at Mannenberg's, it was at Marimba or the Green Dolphin. There was always places, or it could be at Tagore's and Ob's or the Armchair, but there was like a really vibrant scene of live music. And I think things are not the same now. A lot of those venues have shut down. So that's the one factor that plays into how often one performs. And then secondly, I think at this level of my career now, I am a little bit more choosy in terms of where I choose to perform, a bit more picky. So I will do gigs in Cape Town. I launched my album at the Homecoming Centre last November. But also it's expensive to put on concerts. And this is what I didn't know before, that it is expensive to actually put on a show. And I think there's a dialogue to be had between venue owners and, business owners who host live performances and artists, so that we really understand the back end of it. Because I think it has a material impact in how often people are able to get on the stage. But having said all that, I would like to perform more again in Cape Town, and I'm working on it. Joburg has always been that place, right, naturally, where people are always going to perform. But funny enough, I think Cape Town is still so much a home of jazz. Like, I feel like Cape Town is that place. But I think the wreckage of the economy and COVID and the spaces and the low-paying rates oftentimes that artists are offered by venues does have an impact. And then time, Ryland. I mean, I'm older now. I'm a mother. I don't have as much time to do all the things that I would wanted to do. So there is an element of quality control. Like, this is where I'll perform, and I'll leave that to my students to go and perform, there, But I'd love to perform more in Cape Town.
But do you still do lots of corporate gigs?
I do a fair amount of corporate gigs. I do, especially now that
And I suppose that also pays a bit better.
It does pay better.
Yeah.
It could pay better, although it pays better, but it pays better. But even that market, even the corporates are complaining, about how much they have in their budgets to pay artists.
Yeah.
But I think it differs. I think it's a trust thing,
Yeah. So you were talking about your albums. I mean, your first album, Kusile, kind of was received...
I was such a child, yeah.
I don't know if you can use the word critical acclaim, but it was...
Yeah.
It was received well, basically. And, I mean, what did that project mean to you when you released it on?
That project was literally just supposed to be my friends and I in the studio. And when I say friends, I mean friends, because I didn't have a record label budget. So I'd gotten my friends from Varsity and a couple of my colleagues in the industry to get into the studio. I had a little bit of money from my parents as a gift for graduating my undergraduate degree. And it was an independent project. And it was me going, I'm documenting the songs that I've written over the past couple of years, and that's it. So I didn't go into it thinking I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. And it was only once it was complete that the Universal Music executive was interested in actually buying the rights to it. And then I signed with them. And it was lovely. I mean, it won that incredible award, which is a Metro FM Music Award for Best Jazz Album. And I think that was really an encouraging thing to happen to me as someone who was debuting, that young, fresh out of jazz school. So, and I always feel that, and I say this to students often and young artists, that the second and the third album, as the years progress, will sell, and you'll reap the benefits of the first album once you have a second and a third. Because sometimes people come into contact with your work when you're a little bit further down the line. And they go, Nomfundo, I love that album. Do you have more albums? And you go, yeah, I've actually got one from 2013, Kusile. And then they go back and they go, oh, but hang on. So I always go, don't rush. Don't pressure the first album. And so it's lovely when I get on stage and I sing that repertoire from the first album and people love it so much like it came out yesterday. So critical acclaim, I don't know what that means in real terms. I think, it's people use those words, but it was really well received, I think, from just a young voice, young Black woman singing jazz, also in that vein. Judith Sepuma had been out, that cohort of UCT graduates, Musa Manzini, Jimmy Hludlu, Slylo Silota. And so for me, it was like, I'm just happy to be joining that lineage of artists who are coming into the scene.
Yeah, you mentioned some great names here. So I have your latest album, Indilapa. Yeah, it's basically unrepeated Makar. Can we maybe talk a little bit about the creative vision behind that album and how it's evolved, or how your style has evolved from the first album to the third one?
The creative vision behind it, I suppose I don't really work from the premise of a creative vision. If there's a song to be written, I'll write it, right? And a lot of the songs that are, not a lot of them, but some that are on Dilapa are songs that I'd written before I even recorded and released my second album. But I just held back. But I think 9 years after my second album, COVID had happened. I'd lost loved ones. My late grandmother, Obuli, I spoke about earlier. I'd lost Sbongile. But also I'd given birth to my daughter. And all of this happening basically at the same time. And the world changing as a result of the pandemic. I'd gotten married. I'd now become an academic. So a lot of things happened between the second album and the third album. And so the themes in Dilapa of singing about Black womanhood, Mfazi Omnyama, which is an ode to the village of women, right, who have raised not just me, but who've raised us. And also Wendile, there's a song there, Wendile, which speaks about what it means to be married in Xhosa customary, and I sing about that and kind of this idea of, well, what does it mean, but not in a way that seeks to cast a shadow on it, but in a way that says you still have to retain a sense of self. And then a song to my daughter, Zizi, and that's an interesting one because the music, composition-wise, the melody, the chords, I'd written that, I think, in 2014 or 2015. And I just happened to film it on I think it was my old iPad or something, but iCloud things, I don't know how these things work, this iCloud technology thing. And one day, literally in 2023, 2-3 weeks before I go into the studio, I see that it's downloaded all this iCloud stuff, and I click on the one video, and there I am, long dreadlocks, and I'm singing, I'm playing on the piano, ba 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 da ba 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 ba, and I'm thinking, wow, what a great melody. And 30 minutes later, I penned the lyrics to my daughter. So it's an interesting, for me, body of work. Even the Sbongile song, there's a song called Sbongile that features the incredible Professor Dizu Plaatjes on there. I never thought I'd write a song to Sbongile because when she passed away, I said nothing. I think I was just so completely paralyzed by it. And so writing that song as well, which is a through compose, so there's no improvisation, which is typical of a jazz. And I wrote that, and I think, that album is this kind of loss, but also birth, like this life and death, and how those emotions and those experiences, as much as they are complete on the complete ends or opposite ends, but they often happen to us at the same time. So it's and Dilapa means I'm here in this cross. And it's about saying, you don't have to see me all the time, everywhere, on every stage, on social media. My work is there. So that's why I'm saying Dilapa, I am here.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So you published 2 albums with Universal, but the last one you self-published.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I do know. So I went to business school and when I was doing my MBA, my research, my dissertation was around the DSPs, right? And the experience of the independent musician in the age of the digital, of your Spotifys and Apples and all of that. And so I think older, I'd been with the label since 2012. The business model has changed quite dramatically in the music scene. No one really wants to own music now. We access it through streaming. And so I think I'm older now and wiser and in a position where I can actually put out an independent album and have and enjoy full ownership of it. I don't think it's a glamorous thing, because I think it has its challenges to be an independent. And also, what is an independent artist? Because ultimately, you need partners. So for me, like I said earlier, the University of Cape Town, the research, it's partners. You can't do it. It's hard to do it on your own. But I think because I'd researched it while I was at business school and kind of really got into the model of the music industry, I was like, there isn't anything I think the record label would have done for me now. But they did a lot for me for the first 2 albums. In terms of, really putting me out there. But now I was like, from here on, I can take the reins.
And it wasn't like an acrimonious split or something?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. As
So,
it tends to be, right? Sometimes that's why you're asking. Yeah.
No, I mean, in fact, I interviewed Vicky Sampson also the other day, and I know we talked about an issue when she was signing to a record label, and then she couldn't get out of it, and she didn't really like the direction that they were taking, but she was bound to them,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's the thing.
So your songs are very diverse, from what could be described as a joyous celebration, Puya Zondilanda, to slow jazz, I suppose, Wendeli, Zizi, to almost operatic Sibongile, or choral, Imini Yaku. Yeah. How do you want your albums to be experienced? I mean, should people, when they listen to it, should they see it as like stories? Should they see it in terms of, I must listen to this story or this song when I'm in this mood, and this song when I'm in that mood? Or should they just listen to it and experience all of it?
I think they should listen to it and experience all of it. And for me, the album is my experience. So when people want to get a sense of who I am and what I've been through, and and just how I position myself, not only as an artist, but as a woman, as a person, as an individual, and as a member of society, that's the album is that, to say, oh, when she sings about Sibongile, there was a relationship here. But I think I try to write in a way that I don't center myself. So if you listen to the lyrics to Sibongile, I know in my heart's abyss that everyone who's encountered Sibongile feels that way about Sibongile. Because I've seen Sibongile in community with other singers and other musicians. And so it's almost like I write not from a place of me, but from a place of us. And if I think about, Uya Uzondilanda, which is it's really about women and kind of going, we're tired of the femicide, and we need light. We use Uzondilanda mean come back and fetch us, and kind of this play on a personification of light, that the light must come and fetch us from the darkness, right? And I think it's a universal yearning that we all want to spend more time in the light than in the dark. So it's about where are you as the listener when you listen to the album?
So why, if that topic is such a serious topic, the song almost seems like a celebration.
Right? Yes. And I say this on stage, but it's the B section, which is a little bit more kind of in a more legato, but that A section is and you can't help but want to dance. And I was saying, I didn't really have an answer to that because it just came in that way. But now, the academic in me, if I had to theorize and kind of like, I go, well, I also don't want to sing in ways that lament, right? I don't want to sing in ways that lament, but also maybe it's a comment on how we could be dancing in one moment, and then in the next moment we could be in tears. It's really, I've questioned the song myself. I mean, like, how's that? Me questioning how I've written my own song. And then I'm like, well, that's how it is. And mine is to leave it as it is, and suppose grapple with that exact question, that why does it have, and yet the messaging is so. In fact, I was teaching a class just the other day about the music of Sophia Town and how songs like Meadowlands, and we were watching the documentary, and where the late Mam Sophie Mgcina and Dr. Ratebe are making a joke about how they used to sing Meadowlands, and the apartheid police were there, and they used to think, oh, they're dancing. Meanwhile, they're singing about forced removals, or Paso pa nansi ndo demnya mafere foot. Meanwhile, and they're going, ha ha. The apartheid police are probably thinking they're dancing. Meanwhile, we're singing about Will. So I don't know. I don't know. It's how the music comes. It's complex.
If you look typically at your songwriting process, I think you kind of started answering a little bit of it earlier. I mean, do you write the words first? Do you write the melody first? Or is it something that just comes together? Do you sometimes sit for days and think about the way you're supposed to write a song? Or do you sometimes just get moments where just everything comes together?
So the one thing about my songwriting process that never changes is that I never write a song away from the piano. So all songs I've ever written, I've written at the piano. So that's my instrument of composition, always. And then it depends. A lot of the time the melody does come first, but there have been moments when they come at the same time, the melody and the lyric. There's a song on my second album called Fight With Me, and it's just guitar, bass, and voice. And it's a song about a fight, an argument. And I remember I wrote that song immediately, shortly after the argument had taken place, or the fight. And so it was exactly that. So it was like a sonic photograph of that moment. So where the melody came at the same, melody, lyric, everything at one go. And maybe that was because of the heightened sense of emotion and sitting at the keyboard and you're experiencing it and you're telling the story of what's just happened in a song. So there are songs that are like that. We Are Uzondilanda, you were asking about. I wrote the refrain months before I wrote the middle part, the slower bit. So I don't have a formula. It's not formulaic. Hymn for Buli, which I wrote for my late grandmother as well. I sat at the piano, but that is different because the melody is actually derived from an existing hymn, and so it was a play on her hymn. It's her favorite hymn, and so in our culture, when you at your funeral, they have to sing your favorite hymn, Intonga Yako. That's your hymn, and that was my grandmother's, and so I took that melody and I played around to create the hymn for her. And I put the lyrics to it. Really, that lyric, that questions about, if you say this is the will of God, what kind of will is this that's so painful? And that's exactly how I felt. So, but again, always at the piano. That's the only formula that I know, is to write on the piano. I always consider myself to be not that great with lyrics, but yeah, I try anyway. I find that some people are just good with words.
So you spoke earlier about collaborating with Tissot on one song. How important is collaboration to you? And how do you kind of go about deciding who you're going to collaborate with?
I haven't done a lot of collaboration, actually. Certainly haven't musically with another artist in that way. On the second album, again, I had praise poetry on the opening track called Spirit. And on there, it was the late Jessica Mbangeni, who does a beautiful praise poem, and I wanted spoken word on Smongile as well, and that's when I got Professor Xaluva-Dyantyis to come in, because I wanted a change of texture, but I wanted spoken word, but it needed to be. So those two are the only two artists that I've actually invited onto a project. I've been hesitant to collaborate, especially in the first two albums or in the earlier part of my career. I think it was important for me to establish an independent sound and to have bodies of work where it's just me. And I think maybe now, moving forward, I would be happy to collaborate. But it was a decision not to do it too soon. I just wanted my albums to be me.
And so when you kind of recording, how much of an influence does your band members have on how the recording eventually sounds? I remember at the concert you were talking about your, what do you call them, backup singers, and the important role that they actually play in making the songs sound the way they do.
Well, the band is everything on an album recording. So on double bass and on drums, I've been recording with the same musicians from my first album, Wesley Rustin and Kevin Gibson. So they've come with me. They've been on this journey for a long time. And then I've changed pianists. But I always feel that in as much as the album is mine and it's my songs, but they really are the central part of what it sounds like. Someone like Kevin Gibson who's been playing drums probably since I was a baby, and so I look up to him. He's like a mathematician in the studio. He never plays anything out of time, not a beat wrong. Wesley Rustin as well, someone I look up to, who's got this rich, full double bass sound that's not very, it's not everyone has that double bass sound in the country. And so I think playing with those kinds of musicians, Brathu van Schalkwyk now, on the second album it was the great Mark Fransman. On the first album it was Bokani Daya on the keys. They make the album, because it's, and also a lot of that music, right, is up to, it depends on how they interpret it, especially in the jazz idiom, because there's different ways of playing the same song. It's not like classical music where everything does, if you put a Bach piece here, it's going to be played like this every time. In jazz, and so they are central to it. And then with the backing singers, yes, of course, I called them, I remember on stage, I said they're my co-singers, because I really feel like they are, because, especially on this latest album, because it's such a vocally rich album and it's got so many harmonies. And so when you take them away, it changes the song in a material way. I don't think it lessens the quality of the song, but it changes. So it's a team sport.
So I grew up in an environment where musicians were often expected to be much more than people who just wrote songs, sang songs, or performed songs. They were often asked to also comment on politics and, social ills and so on. Do you sometimes feel that there's pressure on you to write less about love and more about political issues or social issues?
Not on me personally. I think it differs. Oftentimes, I think that expectation is more heavier on people who are like extremely famous, like really, like a level of fame that's really quite widespread. And in as much as, I think I have a significant following and people who know my music, but I think I'm not that big of a public figure that people will have that expectation on me. And so, no, I don't experience that. But there are people who do, in my circle of friends and family and colleagues. And I think it's the artist's decision and choice ultimately to write songs about what's important to them. Because I think once you start to mess with the intention behind the art, you're going to run into problems. When I think about the musicians of the 50s and 60s who wrote music that was politically driven, that was the agenda of the time. It was to emancipate the people, and it was important to do that. In fact, we relied on it heavily and we indebted to them. Things are different now, not so much in a sense that there's no, there's no agenda now, but perhaps the agenda is different. And so I think artists must create the art that they want to create. Because once you try to conform, then it's no longer honest. Because I think the thing about, Nina Simone, I suppose maybe singing Mississippi Goddamn, or, or Letambulu singing Not Yet Uhuru, it was genuine. There was an intention there behind that was genuine. So I think if you do have that genuine intention.
Or Hugh Masekela singing about, release Nelson Mandela.
Yes, bring back Nelson Mandela, or Johnny Clegg or Asibonanga. The beauty of those songs is that the intention was so palpable even now on the recording. So you can't come now and try and write something because if you don't actually genuinely believe in that cause. So yeah, I think, you must enjoy the freedom of choice to create the art that you want to create without feeling like you have to appease.
Nomfundo, have you, as a woman, found that there were certain obstacles in a way in the music industry that were there, particularly because you're a woman? And how have you kind of navigated those?
Look, I can't pinpoint one that was sort of directly at me as an individual, but of course, systemically, right? So I can't say I was ever in a situation where I was treated in a different way compared to my male counterpart. But systemically, of course, I also fall, I also face the same challenges that are structural in terms of the imbalance of power and influence in the music industry. So I'm not saved at all from that. But I think when I think about my life as a musician and coming up, when I was still studying jazz and starting in the gig scene in Cape Town, I used to play a lot with male musicians, and a lot of them were older than me, And I must be honest, I never ever felt a sense that I was sexism or misogyny in those environments. I didn't. I would be lying. And I know that there are friends and colleagues and who have had different experiences. So I cannot, it would be disingenuous to say, yeah, it's really been challenging for me as a woman I've been very lucky that I've worked with people who respect me because I lead with respect. And I think because I've always been such a stickler for detail in my craft, that I always made sure that I was always well prepared, because there was always this thing about singers. Singers are not prepared and you just have to look pretty and, and everyone has to babysit the singer. And I was never...
Of course, there's the joke that jazz musicians make about singers, can't find the key and all of that.
all those things, And it was never me, I think. And maybe part of that is because I had the upper hand of having studied music when I was so young and being exposed to music when I was so young. But the musicians I've had the pleasure of working with in Cape Town, even those who are no longer around, who've passed on, have only ever really treated me as an equal and as mentors. And so I've been very fortunate in that way. But having said that, like I said, structurally, of course, the challenges are there. In terms of advocating for yourself, when you're wanting to charge for gigs and that kind of thing, it's there. And I've sat on boards, I served on the Samro Foundation board as well. So I was able to see firsthand how these challenges can really have an impact on people and how they perform. But I don't know if I said lucky or blessed, but I've never had a direct sort of experience targeted at me of sexism or misogyny.
Maybe this is a good time to talk about role models, people who have inspired you. You've mentioned some of obviously Sibongile. Are there any other people who you reflect and you think back, that have had some kind of impact on your life?
Outside of Sibongile, my good friend, and he's the director of the UCT Music School of the South African College of Music, Professor Andrew Lilly, and he's like a brother to me now. And when I was starting or trying to do or apply for a master's degree after my undergrad, and I couldn't string a sentence together, and the short story is that he basically held my hand as a young graduate pursuing postgraduate studies, learning how to write, learning how to research. And I owe so much of the academic and performer that I am now to him, because the degree itself, we didn't have to do a lot of research and essay writing. We were just kind of performers, right? We play jazz. We don't need to be writing stuff. But now you realize that there is a need to document and to write and to be able to put together coherent, papers or articulation of what we do. And he's always been that person to me from then up until now, you know. So he's definitely been a lifelong mentor since I started music school. Yeah, up until now, still a mentor.
So most people, think that being a singer is glamorous. What is the reality?
Absolutely not. Not for me, at least. I mean, like, sometimes I wish it was glamorous for me. I don't know, maybe for other people it is the diva thing, and the glam thing. It's just not my experience, The thought of going on stage petrifies me, and I don't think there's anything glamorous about that. I think a lot of it is really the perception, right? It's like, but it's not. It's a lot of work. And I suppose it depends as well. Why do you sing? Do you sing for the fame and the glam? Or do you sing because you have something important to say? And I've always been a scholar of music since I was 12. So I've never perceived it to be something that was glamorous. In fact, quite the opposite. I've found it to be rather stressful, because you're always practicing and working and trying to get this song and making sure that when you step on stage, you deliver the goods. I've never had that kind of glamorous thing.
So you are kind of a rare commodity in a sense, in that you're a creative with an MBA.
Yes.
So what inspired you to study for an MBA, and how do you see an MBA helping you in your music career?
The MBA thing, it was...
Or maybe even helping others.
Yeah, I mean, I did it because, firstly, I didn't know that musicians could do an MBA until I saw the dean of the Henley Business School, who was being interviewed on a TV station, on a news, talking about a Johnny Clegg scholarship at the business school to do an MBA for musicians. And I was like, that's a thing. And that sparked a curiosity. I mean, I thought, wow, imagine that. And I think I'd gotten to a point where I'd done the music degree, I'd done the master's in the music, and I felt like I needed to challenge myself and stretch myself. So I went to business school, and what a trip that was. But I think, the benefits of an MBA, certainly for someone like myself, are, they're incremental over time. So I think the way that obviously that I handle myself as an artist and the way that I think, but also it's poured so generously into the way that I teach. Because now I'm able to teach content at the music school that's business and industry related. And so I continue to reap the benefits of that. But I also feel like, I just graduated it in 2021. So it's not one of those where you have the MBA and immediately you promote it like in corporate. I think they'll start to, there's just small things that happen, and I think, geez, thank goodness I have, that's from business school. That I remember from business school. So, but I think the biggest benefit of an MBA, I think, is just a way of thinking about the world and about myself, about the craft, and about business, the commercial side of the artistic product.
Do you think your MBA could be useful for you in terms of also helping to think of ways in which we could make the music industry a bit more sustainable? Self-sustainable. I must say I get depressed quite often when I am invited to yet another fundraiser for an ailing musician or for a musician who has just passed away and, died destitute, etc.
Yeah.
Is there a way in which one could change that reality?
Look, I think for someone like me who jumped from an art school to a business school, I feel like I need more time to let the MBA and to let the course content and the whole business mind or business acumen really settle in. Whereas I think for someone who was always working or studying in a kind of corporate degree, like if you were doing a marketing or or accounting, when you go to you do the MBA, it's quicker to see because it's language and terminology and concepts that you've been picking up. But for me, it was like completely different. And so that's why I think now I've got the MBA and the way that I do things is different in terms of thinking. But it's hard to say that, the fundraiser, sustainability of the music industry, great artists dying poor. Oof, Ryland, it's a completely different conversation because I hear people's calls to regulate because there's a hope that if you regulate the industry, it's going to change the economy of the artist. But I'm not entirely convinced, you see, about that. And also in the model now where everybody can just access this music without having to pay for it anymore. So I don't think it's moving towards a direction that is going to solve the musician.
I suppose people do pay, but the artist isn't getting the money.
Well,
If you like,
if you
say, if you
think
take
about it.
a Spotify, for instance. I mean,
Yeah.
I pay a premium subscription on Spotify, but I don't think any of it money actually goes to the artists that listen to.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, majority of the people who are on these platforms are on the ad supported, so they don't pay for them.
Yeah.
You see, so they're trying to get everyone to be subscribers so that they pay the monthly subscription, but people don't even want to pay for that. If they can suffer through some adverts, they're going to access the music without paying for it.
Yeah.
But I think there's a deeper concern here that I think we all need to be aware of, is the fact that, like, my daughter's 3, and she's living in a world now, she's born in a time where, will she even understand that music and art is something that you buy, that you pay for? Because when we were, you knew that if you wanted someone's album, you had to buy it. You used to buy singles at Musica, at Look and Listen. But now, the young ones who are born now, the concept of paying for it, I think that makes me quite worried.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about, artists dying without medical care, without life insurance, no money to bury them.
Yeah. I must say, in fact, I went to the launch of Kyle Shepard's latest album, and he was selling vinyls, and people were buying the vinyls, and they were paying quite a bit of money. I think like 500 rand or something.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And so I thought that was actually quite creative,
It's amazing. Bless Kyle. I mean, we go back, and that's good, right? But then again, you think about 500 rand. Or 400 rand even, and you look at, how many people can afford to buy that. It's a luxury buy. It's a luxury purchase, right?
It is.
It's a luxury purchase. And again, I mean, we used to my first and second album, I used to sell CDs at my gigs. And in fact, I used to actually make quite a bit of money, but then again, it's like, do you have money to pay for printing and packaging and a lot of the plants closed during COVID because everything's digital. So those businesses now, those industries have taken a knock. And so it's quite expensive to even print, a vinyl, a CD, let alone a vinyl. And it makes sense to sell it at that price because how are you going to break even? But it's in the current economy, it's a luxury purchase for the average South African.
So I have to ask you, do you think that government and corporates understand the importance of arts and culture and music industry? And do you think that they could do a bit more?
I think they understand it. At what level, I can't say. I think we understand it because we all engage with arts and culture all the time. We all do. We listen to music. We know what it is. Fashion industry. Of course we know, right? But I think that the deeper question that I ask myself is when we say could they do more? I often think, what does more look like? What does more look like? And I don't have the answer to that. Because when we say the government could do more, okay, let's unpack that. Because I think ultimately people want the opportunity to perform and make money. But someone who works in a different industry is going to say, well, be like everybody else, go and find a job. That's what we're doing in banking. That's what we're doing in whatever industry, So what is it that artists want government to do? And I'm an artist, so I also want more, but I'm thinking, what does it mean in tangible terms when you say more? And I think that's a question we have to answer collectively as an arts sector. When we say we want more investment into venues, okay, well, what does that look like, right? And what are the politics of that in terms of the business landscape with the venues? They've all shut now. So when government invests in venues, which ones do they invest in? Which ones do they not invest in? And remember, artists get paid according to different tiers. So when you regulate, what do you mean? Especially in music. And we often make the mistake of saying arts and it's one umbrella. And yet each discipline within the arts has its own unique challenges and requirements to be sustainable. It's different for an actor than it is for a singer and than it is for a painter or a fine artist, So I think those are the questions that we need to ask. We need to sit and go, when we want government and corporate participation and to do more for the arts, what does that look like? Or do we want to get money? Because I think people want money in their pockets. And I think COVID showed that. There's a relief fund. People apply for. People just want money, you know. And I think there are initiatives, the NAC, and you know, and I think there was the PSP as well. That project or that initiative, but there's a trust deficit, you see, between the sector and government, and it's a justified one when we see the amount of corruption that's happening, and I think it angers people that much more, especially the arts sector. Yeah.
And so, what do you think ordinary people can do to help support the industry a bit more?
Go to concerts as much as you can. I think that's the first thing. Buy concert tickets. Buy people's music. You know, I know we can stream it, but if you can make... I know that people have the option to stream it, but I always say, we know you have the option to stream it, but buy it, download it, own it, right? It's R9.99 per song. You can buy the full album. Buy it. I think we need to do that which we used to do, although we have the option of doing something else. I think that's the first thing, is to buy. We must buy tickets and go and attend live concert. And I find it quite strange, right? It's like you'll have a concert and the people who can afford to buy tickets are the ones who are asking for complimentary tickets. It's such an odd thing. And people who have little will scramble their last bit of money to come and see your show, so they'll buy the ticket. Right? And so I think there's also that problem, that the people who can afford it are often the ones who want it for free. Completely mind-boggling.
Well, in my previous life, at some point I was the chairman of ESP Africa, who organized the Jazz Festival.
Jazz Fest.
And I can tell you for the month of February and March, I used to just switch off my phone. I never used to answer calls because every single call was from somebody who was looking for free tickets. So what do you do in your spare time, and what kind of music do you listen to?
What do I do in my spare time? So in my spare time, I hang out with my girlfriends. That's the most important thing to me. I like to go for walks, and I can't fit in gym anymore. And I'll watch series. I love to cook. I have a toddler now, so I don't even know what spare time really is. I used to. But yeah, I like to just... And sometimes during my spare time, I like to do nothing, which I think is good, to rest, because that's why it's spare. I think we should spare it. Because I think, well, what are you going to do to your spare time? It's like, can we do nothing? And I think that also it's come with age and parenthood, where I go, it's spare time. I don't have to actually occupy it. So I just like to sit and veg out. The kind of music that I like to listen to, I've always loved listening to kwaito. I grew up on it, always. I listen to amapiano in my car. I love to listen to that. But I listen to all kinds of different music. One moment I could be in the mood to listen to Tyler. The music that I don't really listen to often is hip-hop, funny enough. Unless I'm in a crowd, in a party, and I think I should listen to a bit more hip-hop. But I listen to all kinds of music and whatever's on. And sometimes my husband will put on music that I've never heard, or something completely different. And I listen to that. But I must also confess that I don't listen to music as much as I used to.
So I told myself I'm not going to ask you about your husband in this interview, and I don't want to. But I do know that your husband is also a renowned singer, and you are a renowned singer. And do you think there will be pressure on your little one to follow in the footsteps?
Yeah, there might be, but... well, we sit and we go, like she'll sing something in perfect pitch, and we look at each other and we go, no. I need for her to sing that badly. She just sang that perfectly, you know. And I suppose it's fine. Genetics will play their role, but yeah, and she'll figure it out. She's already playing a bit of trumpet and all of that, but yeah.
How old is she now?
She's turning 4 in November.
Sure, yeah. And so what's next for you? I mean, it took you, 9 years to release the
Are you wondering, is it going to be another 9 years?
Yeah.
So what's next for me? Well, I'm not recording an album anytime too soon, because this one is still pretty new. I'm busy with my PhD now, which is an expansion of my master's on Miriam Makeba. And the doctoral project will include a creative portfolio of compositions and performance. So when I go into studio again now, it will be for the purposes of the PhD. And I really want to immerse myself in that as kind of as a creative researcher and explore what that means to do creative research. So that's what I'm doing. And and just doing my job as best I can, investing in students, always, trying to up my game as an educator and just show up. It's just really about showing up for the people who rely on me to show up both in my personal life, but also in my professional life.
And when you look at your students, I mean, are there among your students that you can see already now, this one has got a great future?
Absolutely. 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 And it's a privilege to teach, especially in an art form like music and jazz, because students arrive already with something in them. And I think for me, my philosophy is that mine is to unleash that. It's not to direct it or to make it or break. It's to open to the student that which is already in there, but also to teach the craft, right? And so when they graduate, and you can see that they still are themselves, but with such a heightened level of freedom because they've got such a strong grounding in the craft of whatever it is that they're doing. So they're able to match the skill set of being a pianist, singer, with artistry, being themselves and being, free. But I think you can't really, I'm always like, you can't be artsy. You also have to be actually quite good at playing the instrument, the skill.
So Nomfundo, my final question is, so what kind of message do you have for young people who might be watching this and feel inspired to follow in your footsteps? What would you say to them?
Commit. You have to commit to whatever it is that you're wanting to achieve. And I'm very cautious when I answer this because I appreciate that I had a leg up because I started music when I was 12. And that's shaped the kind of artist I am now. And I'm alive to the fact that a lot of little black girls don't have that at 12 or even at 18. And I see it at the university, people come in to audition and they can't read music. And so I understand that it's disingenuous to go, well, commit and maybe, because I had a leg up. But having said that, I think commit to it. If you want to be a musician, study and avoid the shortcut. Always avoid the shortcut.
Thank you for watching Crossing the Line. I want to once again thank Mobilan for all the technical support, the technical crew for making me look good. Please follow us on our socials. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and some others that I forgot. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve the show, please let us know. If you have any guests that you think we should be inviting into the studio, please also let us know. Thank you, Nomfundo. Thank you for coming into Crossing the Line. And to everybody out there, until next time, goodbye.